Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel and thanks for joining us for another episode of FPL Fix. We were meant to have a break from FPL last weekend, but instead, the FA Cup delivered absolute carnage. There were injuries, suspensions, shock results, and just when we thought we had a plan, it's all gone up in smoke again. I'm James, and here to help us weave our way through the FPL minefield is Patrick.
Hi everyone. Yeah, it's been mayhem. Just when we thought we had things under control, we now have blanks, doubles and injuries to deal with, and FPL managers have some big decisions to make. We've got plenty to break down, so let's start with how our teams got on last week. So, James, why don't you start? How did your team get on last week?
Thanks Patrick. Last week I beat my safety score by 5 points and I hit a hat-trick of green arrows for just the second time this season. Starting from the back and with my top performer this game week, a massive differential in Ederson. The Man City keeper made a number of saves against Spurs, and even though he didn't add to his record-breaking assist tally, he picked up a very impressive 11 points through save points, max bonus and the clean sheet. Picking Ederson over Henderson as a last-minute decision is the only reason I managed a green arrow again, so he really was my standout player. In defence, Munoz returned with another assist. Kirkez did too, but he stayed on my bench because of Anthony Robinson. Robinson only came on after the 70th minute and managed to get booked, which removed the 1 point he would have scored, while also blocking Kirkez for me as well, so that really wasn't ideal. Aït-Nouri was my last defender and he blanked as well. In midfield, I took a massive risk in not bringing Cole Palmer back. I watched the game and saw goal after goal for Chelsea, chance after chance for Palmer, and the only goal involvements he had were the celebrations for his teammates. All the midfielders I did choose over him rewarded my faith, including Bowen, who I actually brought over him last week. Bowen, Salah and Mbeumo all registered 1 assist, and Salah in particular was really unlucky not to have more. It looked like he was mocking Newcastle in the way he decided to play Trivela passes and shots at every opportunity. Luis Diaz missed a fairly easy chance from one of those Trivela passes from Salah that would have been a goal of the season contender had it gone in. Kluivert was my best outfield player. He scored a worldie against Brighton and took away max bonus despite the loss. And then in strike I had Marmoush and Cunha. They both blanked, but Wissa stepped up and held up my attacking line with a goal plus max bonus from his towering header. So even though it was a low points total this week, less than I've been used to over the last few, I was really happy with the outcome. So Patrick, Arne Slot had been doing your job for you the last few weeks as assistant manager. Did you miss him last week?
James, it's now very obvious that Arne Slot was carrying my team. As a result of his lack of points, I got my first red arrow in 3 weeks. Got 48 points, which was below the average. I put a lot of blame on Isaac, but that would be scapegoating. My top performers for Game Week 27 were Captain Salah with 12 points and Michaelenko and Wan-Bissaka, who got over 5 points each. I was happy that Bowen, who I brought in on deadline, also returned with a healthy 6 points. Now let's talk about my worst performers. Prior to the deadline, there was a lot of debate about Palmer. The majority of FPL experts were super bullish about Palmer's potential massive returns, and many advised it was the only sensible captaincy choice. So I gave in to peer pressure and I decided against selling him for the 3rd week in a row. And what did I get me? You guessed it, a massive 3 points return. At this stage, I shouldn't be trusted to comment on Palmer. With Isaac out, the rest of my forward assets failed to produce anything worth talking about. They both combined for 4 points. Overall, I was pleased with my defense, and I forgot to mention that Kirkez again provided a decent return. Salah was again the outstanding performer. However, I need to really spend time re-evaluating my midfield. Okay, that's how our teams got on, but let's see who the real stars were from last week.
On screen we have the top point scorers in each position last week. Starting with the keepers, we have one standout performer who nearly doubled the rest of the field, my keeper Ederson. He had 11 points. Then Alisson, Raya, Sells, Areola and Jorgensen all kept clean sheets for 6-point returns. The defender section is dominated by Chelsea. Cucurella and Colwill both scored and kept a clean sheet for massive returns. O'Brien was a surprise in 3rd, and despite Everton drawing with Brentford, O'Brien came up with a goal and took 2 bonus points in doing so.
In midfield, Ismail Assar and Jayden both scored 2 goals each and recorded an impressive 15 points return. Nkunku and Neto both did really well. They both scored and assisted in Chelsea's 4-0 win. Szoboszlai continued his impressive form. He scored a goal which has given him back-to-back double figures return. The strikers were really close this week. All 5 of the top scoring strikers just scored 1 goal this week and were separated just by bonus points. Moniz and Wissa were joint top with 9 points. Haaland, João Pedro and Mateta all received 8 points.
Okay, some massive performances there, and even a couple of names I haven't heard of before. It's no surprise that a few of these players are now being transferred in, but I know we have some strange situations on this list, so let's have a look at who are the most transferred players ahead of the next game week.
So this week we will start with the most transferred in players because incredibly 2 of the players were transferred in massively before the FA Cup chaos. Mateta transferred in by over 200,000 managers before the vicious kick he received from the Millwall goalkeeper, which has caused him over 20 stitches. He blanks in 29, but is now likely to blank in 28 as well due to concussion protocols. Munoz has probably been the most informed defender recently. However, we now know that he does blank in 29, but the managers bringing him in will hopefully have a plan and will be either free hitting or will be able to bench him and still field 11 players. Cunha was transferred in by nearly 150,000 managers. He then played in the FA Cup and scored a world-class goal before losing his head and getting a red card. He's now suspended for 3 to 4 games as a result. Clive has fixtures in 29. He scored a great goal last week and his minutes shouldn't be too impacted by the return of Evan Nelson. Bournemouth have good fixtures, so the transfers in make sense. Szoboszlai we called out a few weeks ago now, before the double game week 24. He's been in great form since then, and similar to Munoz, if you can bench him in 29 or are free hitting then, he's a great pick.
Now looking at the players most transferred out, we can see that Mateta and Cunha are also among the top of that list. They've both gone from optimal picks to players to avoid following the FA Cup incidents. Isak, Palmer and Robinson are the others to look at. Isak blanks in 29, while Palmer and Robinson have tough fixtures. People will want Isak back though, ahead of double 32, and his price may continue to drop before then. Palmer upset quite a few people last week with his blank. He has another great fixture this week, and I think he can score big and make amends for the Southampton chances despite his dodgy form. Robinson was one of the best defenders to own at the start of the season, but has now blanked 3 games in a row, so owners seem to have lost patience. So it's interesting to see who's being transferred, but let's have a look at if they're really the best pick. Let's have a look at the top players to target for the upcoming game weeks.
On screen we have Bournemouth, West Ham and Wolves, who importantly all have fixtures in all 3 of the next game weeks, but also have strong points potential.
So we spoke about him last week, but I still think Bowen is the best pickup on this list. West Ham still have good fixtures and Bowen is their focal point and likely their penalty taker while Paqueta's still out. Evan Nielsen returning from injury has shaken up the minutes for the Bournemouth attack. He'll definitely be getting some game time again after starting and scoring in the FA Cup, and he's a potential Cunha or Mateta replacement if you can trust the minutes. But for me, Strand Larsen has now shot up on the list. With Cunha out, I'm certain that he will benefit. Wolves will lack creativity without Cunha, but Strand Larsen should be involved in any goals they do manage, and they have a great fixture run, which is why so many of us owned Cunha. Is there anyone else you're interested in, Patrick?
I think Kirkes has been one of the most dependable defenders this season, and Graham Potter is starting to unlock Wan-Bissaka's true potential. The only other player I would like to mention would be Strand Larsen. I think he's extremely underrated and is a classic number 9. However, even though I'm currently looking for a striker to replace Cunha, I don't fancy any of the strikers on screen. Strand Larsen hurt me early in the season and I can't bring myself to transfer him in again. So I'm leaning between Wissa and Beto at the moment. But let's move on to team selection so I can show you the moves I'm making. For game week 28, I've decided to keep Onana in goal, despite facing a strong Arsenal attack at home. It's a risky move due to Man United's shaky defence. Both of my goalkeeping options face strong attacks and I prefer Onana over Flecken. My defence will stay the same, Michaelenko against Wolves. Everton's defence has been solid lately and Wolves are prolific scorers, especially now that they have lost Cunha. meaning the attack has lost its true potent asset. Kirkes faces Spurs, but he's still a great attacking threat. This is the same reason why I'm keeping Wan-Bissaka in the team. However, I'm also thinking about bringing in Van Hecke because Brighton have better fixtures. In midfield, I'm going to rely on Salah against Southampton's weak defence, which makes him a top captaincy contender. I think Bowen's a solid pick. Newcastle's defence is vulnerable at the moment, especially with Hall being injured. Palmer and Enzo stay in despite last week's performances. Both Chelsea players are against a struggling Leicester team. Palmer is on penalties and I stupidly believe he has to eventually regain the form he has shown early in the season. Enzo's output is less reliable, but he's been solid lately. Ondango's position is not held down and I might get rid of him by deadline because his minutes are now at risk. Up front, I think Isak against West Ham is a strong pick. He got rested last week due to fatigue and I believe he should be back against the leaky West Ham defence. I'm also keeping Wood against Man City, even though City is in great form. The only change will be Cunha. At the moment it's going to be between Beto and Wissa as mentioned earlier. I'm not super confident about this week as you can tell, but overall I think there's enough about my team to be optimistic. James, you got Green Arrow last week. Are you staying with the same team or are you planning on making changes?
Well, I've got one transfer and slightly controversial move that I'm definitely making this week, but you can't see it on screen yet as I'm waiting for a price drop which is fairly likely to come before the deadline. So this week I'm pretty much forced into a 3-5-2 because of Cunha's antics. I'm torn between Ederson and Henderson in goal, but I'm leaning towards Henderson because of the fixture. I would have been playing Hall, but he's now injured and out for the rest of the season. So I'll be playing Munoz, Robinson and Kirkes, with Ait-Nouri my only bench option in the team. Munoz should get chances for points at both ends. Robinson and Kirkes are mostly playing for a chance of attacking returns. I do prefer Ait-Nouri's fixture over both of them, but I think Everton will bust the Wolves clean sheet anyway. In midfield, I'll be making my transfer. I'm holding off until just before the window in case of the price drop, and I'm definitely going to be buying Cole Palmer and pretty certain I'll be captaining him. I think the variance on this is massive because of people being let down by him last week. The fixture is perfect, his team will be doing all they can to help him score and boost confidence, and I think he'll be doing his best to avoid another blank. Salah does have an incredible fixture, but I just think he might get some rest time from slot. We know he's a fitness monster, but between the two PSG games and with it being as close to a gimme as possible against Southampton, I think Salah might get some reduced minutes. So I'll be lining up for this week with Captain Palmer and Vice Captain Salah. Then I've got Bowen and Mbeumo with home fixtures and then Cliver away against Spurs. All of those players should be the penalty takers, so I'm quite happy with those options. In strike, I'll be playing Wissa, who has a good fixture against the tired Aston Villa defence, so could do well, and Marmoush, who I'm not expecting a lot from in this fixture, but I don't have many options, and he's staying in my squad for the better fixtures down the line. And that's all for this episode of FPL Fix. Let us know in the comments how the FA Cup chaos affected your team this week, and what transfers you're lining up.
And remember, if you found this helpful, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more FPL content, and follow us on Twitter @WeekendFix for more updates and last minute tips.
Thanks for watching everyone, and good luck with Game Week 28.